So here we are in this adventure of the second mountain, second group of Psalms in the Psalter. It's Psalm 16 to 23 in our Bibles, and Psalm 22 or 21 for many of our liturgical books, which is the psalm which Jesus cries out the first words, my God, why have you forsaken me?" on the cross. And let me share to you screen, and we're going to be able to go directly here to look at our psalm, where I have used as translations that evoke as much as possible the richness of the Hebrew words, and which is very very rich. But I tried to get what the essential thrust of the words. So this psalm has a superscription, which you see on top, right? For the leader according to the strengthening of the dawn, a Psalm of David. The strengthening of the dawn is an absolutely unique expression as a superscription of the 150 Psalms. And the dawn here is time when night and day are intermingled, and where we just have the intuition of the day to come. And we'll see strengthening becomes a very important word in the psalm later, right? It's the strengthening, we could say the strengthening of hope, right? Well, we can only sort of guess that night is coming to an end. So I put as title of the psalm what you see written, underlined in the top, and as all the psalms of this second group in the Psalter, it's a strongly messianic psalm. So it's the Messiah's song, this psalm, and a song of renewed vigor when surrounded by ultimate darkness, while trusting that morning cannot be far away. And I think that resumes really the dynamic of this psalm, and the dynamic which is behind the first words, which Jesus cried out on the cross. Because it's at the same time a cry of abandonment, but it's at the same time a prayer, and a real prayer. So let us, when you, on the screen here, you see that the first part is in blue, and then you're going to have a second part, central part in rose. Then we're going to get back to the third blue part, because there are echoes in between the first part and the third part. But also there's a continuity from the first to the second. We have to go down one by one and receive the message of these three parts of the psalm, of which right now we only see the first part, so that we can go forward. So here we are with this first scene, right? The blue part, you could say, it's in the, I wrote, ultimate distress under God's silence, an insistent call of faith. They're going together. And so this psalm is teaching us to put both together. And let's read the first of the four parts of the blue. O my Eli, for what purpose have you forsaken me? Far from saving me are the words of my groaning. O my Eloi, I call by day, but you do not answer. By night, and I have no inner or outer quieting. And so all all starts with this first line where, for what purpose have you forsaken me? Why have you forsaken me? And this why or for what purpose, takes us from the expressions of Moses, who repeatedly says in Exodus chapter 32, Moses says, "O Lord, why does your wrath burn hot against your people?" And then right after, "Why should the Egyptians say, uh, you know, with evil intent, God brought them forth?" And in the book of Numbers, chapter 10, you have Moses says, "Why do you treat myself, your servant, so badly? Why are you so displeased with me that you burden me like this?" So Jesus is taking up these great, for what purpose? For what purpose? Why? Of Moses. But in this psalm, which is the Messiah, and it's going, as we're going to see, it goes even further than Moses is preparing what we have in this psalm, in this great psalm. So here, there's this expression which I put, "I have no inner or outer quieting." So this, by night, right? In the Hebrew, I have no dumia. Dumia is a word in Hebrew that's combining dom, which is inner quiet, and dhamma, which is outer silence. So I have no inner quiet or outer silence by night, which is precisely the moment when I can collect things together, right? During the day, you don't answer. In other words, during the day, I see nothing of your presence, right? And at night, I'm incapable of what's going to collect my mind. And but with this great distress, there's in the next part we see the relation with God is not cut off. And verse 4, "Yet, O you, O Holy One, you throne on the singing of praise of your mighty acts by Israel." And this is, "O you are the one whom Israel calls to and celebrates as the Holy One. Holy, holy, holy." It's said in Isaiah chapter 6 and in our Eucharist. And usually this expression, "O Holy One you throne on," it's, "O Holy One you throne on the cherubim." And we have that over and over again. But here, for example, in Psalm 99, we have, "The Lord is King, God is enthroned on the cherubim, the earth quakes." But here, "enthroned on the singing of praise of your mighty acts by Israel." That means that Israel, in putting into action its vocation, has the same role as the cherubim, which bring forth the transcendent God present to creation in a unique way. So here, I, the Messiah, remember this, but I also am united with all the past of my history of Israel. Verse 5 and 6. "In you our ancestors trusted. They trusted and you rescued them. To you they cried out, and they were taken out of danger. In you they trusted, and were not deceived. This is the great experience of the crossing of the Red Sea, and which is, as I put on the left, I put little titles to help you. My life is an antithesis. My life of abandonment right now to the past, where you were so present to us, O God. So that's the idea of this little second part. And so, what am I like? Right? Then we have verse 7 to 9. In verse 7 to 9, it starts with, but I am a worm. And in Hebrew, worm is tola'at. And it's a very common word in the Pentateuch. It's the common word which designates the color that this worm gives to taints. And so in the Pentateuch, we have the temple, which has taints of tolat, which is, you could say, it's scarlet. Taints of scarlet, this deep red, similar to blood, right? And the veil has this scarlet. The curtain of the court has this scarlet. The priest's garments have this scarlet, right? And in the liturgy themselves, right, ingredients receive the scarlet. And so this is what, I am a worm, but there's this other aspect of being a worm, right? I'm the one who gives the sacred taint of liturgy. While being here, it's really the worm as a tragic side of being nothing, right? And but that we don't find very often in the Old Testament. Just once we have the worms that infest the manna in Exodus chapter 16, right? The worms got into the manna and a foul smell came out. So it has this beautiful ritual and bordering on the divine. It's this color which speaks of the presence of the divine, but also this tragic side, right? Where it's what wrecks things, right? So I am not a man, and here no ish. I have no nobility of the human, and I'm the scorn of Adam. What's interesting that Adam, is the red earth, and the Genesis plays a lot on the fact that Adam is both the one who is taken out from the earth, but that this earth was red. And Edom is linked to red. And the contempt of the people. So I am, and this is developed in the two next lines. All who see me laugh at me, sneer with their lips, shake their heads. You relied on the Lord, let him bring you into freedom, let him rescue, for he loves you. So I put in the margin, Matthew 27:39, we have almost the same words, and just with respect to this expression, if I find it here, the sneer of the lips, it's the deforming through the lips. Wait, it's eluding or dismissing, right? This way of, with their lips, men have eluded the reality of my uh, being the Messiah, or they've dismissed it. So, and by this quote of verse 9, right, he regarded the Lord, this mockery, right, where it's a mockery that says, you are in a completely false, your God is a false God. That's what they're saying. And contradicting precisely this trust which we had before in verse 4 to 6. And so the conclusion is this fundament that I am so, my intimacy with God is so anchored. So verse 10 and 11. Yet you drew me forth with difficulty from the womb. And the expression is that there's really something quite extraordinary that goes through the birth of a child. It's not at all something that goes out automatically, but and the fact that mother and child survive is really, God gives a miracle each time. I think those who live next to someone who just gives birth to a child, they feel that miracle just going on. And so you drew me forth miraculously, you could say, from the womb, right? And trusted me, and it's the same word as the 3 times trust in verse 5 and 6. You entrusted me to my mother's breast. You put me with a created image of trusting in you, myself trusting in my mother's breast. A beautiful, and we really feel that we have the example of what prayer is, right? In a child entrusted to his mother's breast. And this is what is recalled here. And then verse 11, upon you I was thrust from her compassionate womb. So it's an expression, it's another word for the womb, which is the same root as compassion, a God of compassion. And I was thrust from, and I was thrust forth. The idea of thrust, I was thrust forth. I was set up. I was set off on my race, starting from her compassionate womb, her womb of mother, and so that I can cry out, "You are my Eli." I can confirm the very first words of Jesus on the cross and the very first words of the Psalm, "Oh my Eli, oh my Eli." And I finish this part, like the next part, it's going to be, I renew my supplication. Be not far from me. Truly trouble is near. Truly there is none to help. So this is the first movement of the psalm, and which has this beautiful reality of insistent call of faith inside God's silence. We often dissociate the two. God's silence, we say, well, I don't know how to keep faith, right? But here we have a total vigorous expressions of faith inside very gripping distress night of God's silence. And this is increased by the center of the psalm, which is the rose part. We have in the center, and the rose part is composed let me read what's in the margin on the left, right? Which gives a little bit a clue to what it's all about. I am under gratuitous hatred by bull, lion, dog, reaching to my bones, heart, tongue, hands, feet. So there's this further than in the first part, where it's simply this experience of abandonment of God. We could say a spiritual experience. Here we say, it goes into something which is eating on my physical world. And so it starts with these, and it's the animals who are the instruments of this eating physically myself, this abandonment, eating myself physically. And we start with the bulls. We have 3 different names of bulls in this psalm, right? There's the first one in verse 13 is Parim. The second one, also in verse 13, is Abirim. And then at the end, we're going to have Remim. And what's interesting is that if you start with the first one, Parim, it's the word which is also at the very end of Psalm 51. And I will offer bulls on your altar. And precisely because those Parim, they are, by excellence, the animals offered to sacrifice in the temple. So in our New Testament mentality, they're sort of the lambs which are offered, right? These first Parim bulls. Right? So what's curious is this aggressiveness, which is only found here of the Parim with respect to me. Usually, it's the Parim are used as the sacrificial living matter offered in the temple to God to express our worship of God. And so there's this mysterious, like for the scarlet worm, right? We have double function of these words, right? There's an aggressive part, but behind there's a whole tradition of profound contribution to worship. And when God puts us into this, is deeply silent, He's working on both levels at the same time. This is a great teaching of this psalm, as we're going to see as we go forth. So after we have the fierce bulls of Bashan, this is the Abirim, and they are neither ever used as an image of persecution. They're used of great power, let's say. We have, and just to get, and it's very close to the last word with Remim, where I put the wild bull in verse 22. And it's wild bull, but we have in Deuteronomy, the end of Deuteronomy, chapter 33, Joseph, among the sons of Jacob, has horns of Remim. And so the strength of Joseph, right? That's what these bulls, they're emblem of strength and power. And in fact, in the book of Numbers, we have God is to Israel like a Remim. So he's this strength and power. And yet here, these fierce bulls of Bashan encircle me. And, so they represent those who are bringing into my flesh this suffering of abandonment. But at the same time, they are messengers of the power of God. And so, verse 14, they open their mouths against me, lions that tear and roar. And here in Hebrew, it's very clear these two expressions. Tear, they're tearing me up. And they're roaring in the sense they are terrifying me. And then we have the mysterious verse 15. Like waters I am poured out. And already in the Old Testament and also in the New Testament, like waters I am poured out. We could think of the in Acts chapter 10, we have the Holy Spirit, the grace of the Holy Spirit was poured out on the Gentiles. And so we have something very similar here that there's a very positive aspect of poured out. And when the waters are poured out, they're communicating. That's what happens when you have a big rain. Right? They pour and they irrigate the whole land, right? And so there's a very positive aspect of that. And also so my bones, we'll look at, before going to the comment on my bones right here, let's look at all these aspects of my person, my physical person, that are taken by the suffering of abandonment in a physical way. So we have here, where do I have the bones? Let me get to my page. We're in verse. Oh yes, my bones, right. So we have twice bones at the beginning and the end of the description of parts of the person, right? But for example, I'll give you two psalms. In Psalm 32, we have, when I declared not my sin, my bones wasted away. And in Psalm 139, my bones were not hidden from you when I was fashioned. The bones are, we could say, the symbol of the person in their unique individuality. And they're linked here with verse 9. We're going to have bones again in verse 18 and 19. 18. And I can recount all my bones. And they're immediately associated with, they divide my garments among them. And the garments are also what expresses the individuality of someone. And so bones are this very profound physical sign of the uniqueness of person. And then we have heart, and then heart is it's one in the Old Testament which joins mind and affectivity. It's this deep source of uh, of my being, right? And then tongue, the tongue is for the word, right? And we're going to get to it right away. And hands and feet is what allows me to be able to have contribute in my actions, and actions which are put into practice, right? So we're back to this verse 15. Like waters I am poured out, all my bones are out of joint. So this is mysterious. In other words, this individuality of my persons is being divided in a certain sense. And we can go directly to verse 18. I can recount all my bones, and here we have a number of times this same word recount, but here it's really I can count. In other words, there's my bones are out of joint, and they become my individuality is taken into multiple pieces, right? And so that's what happens to my bones, right? And my heart is like wax; it melts away within me. It loses its holding itself up, right? And being this strong reference point, right? And verse 16, my capacity for efficiency is dried up like a potsherd. I'm no more able to bring forth efficient acts, right? And that goes with hands and feet, right? With my hands and feet, I can't put into practice, right? What I would like to do. Dried up. My tongue clings to my jawbone. My tongue is completely maimed. That means the word of my mouth is taken away. We can think of Jesus in the Passion where he stopped talking. It's the announcement of the good news is he has to totally give it up, right? And he himself had this great thirst during the Passion. And all this leads to the central verse of the whole psalm and the central verse of this rose part. You lay me in the dust of death. And so, what's the reason for this great silence of God with respect to me, right? And God, you lay me in the dust of death. And the verbs in the Hebrew is lay me is the same thing as you lay me with my fathers who have passed away. In the dust, afar, it's in what has the least life, right? In death. So you could say it's in a triple way saying you put me to death, death, death. And it's God who is the source of this. And this is the mystery. But in this, the Messiah is speaking to God. It's a relationship which is able to be alive beyond death, which is the heart of this psalm. And where he takes me to death for a relationship which is beyond death. And this is all the more dramatic with all these animals attacking me, right? And so we have right after the central verse 16, we have again a evoking of the animals, right? For dogs surround me, a pack of evildoers closes in on me, as a lion attacking my hands and my feet. And so there's this sense of complete attack, and where there's these different animals that come in. So with this multiplication of different animals and different expressions, it goes in the direction of they are symbolic, and they're a group which is uniquely grouped in this psalm among all Old Testament of bull, lion, dog, right? And they have a symbolic expression. We can say, in the light of verse 16, right? They're a symbol of the very concrete permission of God. You lay me in the dust of death, and they are bringing this about. And therefore, I can recount all my bones. And then I have something which is quoted as it is in the Passion of Jesus. They look, they stare at me, they divide my garments among them, for my clothing they cast lots. What does that mean? Is it I can recount all my bones, and basically it goes with the dividing of the garments. And my individual personality of Messiah, right, is being multiplied and becoming distributed like my garments to those who are the dogs, who are the soldiers are the dogs during the Passion, right? And so they divide my garments among them. They receive my heritage. And so there's a complete my individual person, right, becomes the possession of even the sinner, the impious, the adversary. And then we finish with verse 20 to 22, where, like for the first part, for the second part, always coming back to this very great, strong plea. But you, O Lord, be not far off. O my strengthener. So God is my strengthener. You give me the strength of faith inside this situation. Come quickly to help me. Deliver my soul from the sword, my unique beloved one, from the paw of the dog. And this expression, unique beloved one, it's really one which you have a couple of times in the Psalms of it's the chosen one of God, right? And but the chosen one of God is put in the paws of the dog, huh? Delivered to the sword. So save me from the lion's mouth, from the horns of the wild bull. So this whole central part, rose part, with the yellow in the middle, is this very this abandonment goes to the very extreme of of my identity, which has these connotations of verse 15, poured out, or on the other side, verse 19, they divided among them. And so there's my suffering, which becomes the means of communication, even to those who are my aggressors of my deep being. But here, for the Messiah, he never loses this vigor, right, of expressing his trust, faith. Oh, my strengthener. And suddenly, there's, at the end of verse 22, you indeed answer me, right? Which is exactly opposite of the end of verse 3. You do not answer me. I cry and you do not answer me. Here, you answer me. So we have in this psalm this double reality. You don't answer me and you answer me. Is not that so close to all our lives, right? Yes. I experience times of abandonment, and that delivers in me the cry, you do not answer me. And yet, there's this other level of myself. Indeed, you do answer me. And what happens with that? With that, we get into the last of the three parts of the psalm. So we get back to the blue. And here you have the end of the psalm in front of you. And where are we? Yes, here. This end part, I put as title, right? Hymn to God who answers the prayer of the poor one with a grace that spreads. We're going to look more into that, but let's start with it. You answer me, then immediately, verse 23, then I will recount your name to my brethren, my brothers. In the midst of the assembly, I will sing to you, Alleluia. There is immediately God answering me is propelling me into a community sharing. This time one where it's a community sharing, brothers, and the assembly where we sing Hallelujah, and where we welcome this whole story of trust, which goes through these enormous trials. And this is for verse 24. You who fear the Lord, sing Alleluia to him, right? So join, all who fear the Lord, join this, the close-knit group around Messiah. And then, all the race of Jacob, give glory to him. Stand in fear filled awe of him, all the race of Israel. So why do we have the race of Jacob and the race of Israel? And then finally, we're going to have in verse 31, at the bottom, you see, the race who serves him, the race of your servants, which goes beyond Jacob and Israel. But who is Jacob? Jacob is the one who always keeps standing up in trials. Right? And so, all the race of Jacob, all you who are standing up in trials, give glory to the Lord. But all the more, Israel, the new name of Jacob, the one who is passed the trial, who's been able to live through the trial, right? Stand in fear-filled awe of him. And this, the expression here is really, remain before the transcendence of him. You who have been able to pass through the trial. So glorify him, you are still in the trial. And stand in fear of him, you have passed the trial. Verse 25, truly he is not held in contempt and disdain the poverty of the poor. So here we have the expression, enut ani, and it's poverty with the connotation of unworthiness. You have not held in contempt and disdain those who are considered by others unworthy. Poverty of the poor, unworthy. And they are the ones who are at the center of your gift and your answer. And in this psalm, the idea, you could also translate that same verse, truly he has not held in contempt or disdain the poverty of the poor one whom I am. The Messiah who has lived everything was just before. He has not turned away from him his face, but when he cried out, he hearkened. So in other words, he recounts, the poor one recounts this testing of the silence of God, which is above. And then this also brings him to a new engagement, right? From you and with you. It's a special word in Hebrew which has both, they have both together, but they're very, it's a word, there's from with you, right? This is my praise. And so it comes from you, but I join with you in my praise in the Grace Assembly, right? So I live both at the same time. And I will complete my vows. I will complete this from you and with you with my vows before those who fear him. My vows, what a beautiful definition of vows, right? The vows are before those who fear him. The vows are the sort of the nourishment of those who fear God. And they're not only nourish of the individual that does the vows, he nourishes all those who fear God. But the poor one, the poverty of the poor, is here in the middle of verse 27, takes even a more central aspect, right? It's so verse 25, God is not held in contempt or disdain the poverty of the poor. Verse 27, the poor lowly will eat and be satisfied, will be fed, right? I will feed the poor lowly one, and they will sing Alleluia, those who seek him. May your hearts live forever. The whole thrust. That is where life, he's going to bring life to the poor lowly ones, right? Starting with the very fundamental need of life, which is eating and singing and entering and singing to God. And into hearts, may your hearts live forever. That it be a life which proceeds into eternity, right? And so that's at the heart of what is given through this testing of the Messiah, which is the first part of the psalm, and being now answered, right? It becomes this the poor lowly ones are going to be accompanied in the most intimate way into entering into the very fullness of life and eternal life. And with this, we have, this is going to bring a message that goes out universally. Remember Jesus during his ministry, 3 years, right? To his disciples and a group of women and a few followers, right? But suddenly, through this having totally identified with the poor lowly ones in his passion and being answered by God in this identification, right? His gift suddenly radiates. Now all the to the ends of the earth. And now all the ends of the earth engage in liturgical memorials and change of faith. And that's the call which comes out from the Messiah. Engage in liturgical to the ends of the earth, those who have no idea of anything else than idols. There is this invitation of entering into the beautiful mission of the Church through liturgical memorials and to bring a completely new discovery of faith. May all families of nations bow down and worship before your face. So this confirms. Truly, kingship belongs to the Lord, and he rules over the nations. And behind it, kingship belongs to the Lord. The Lord to whom it belongs to have laid me in the dust of death is the king that rules over all the nations. That's what he's professing here. Now I understand, right? But there's this division in the psalm because there's juxtaposition of two experiences, which are both real and both totally actuated, but which are lived in their proper context, which is totally different. The not being answered and being answered. And the human person is one that has this richness of being to have both registers totally in act in him. So we're at verse 30 now. All the fat ones of the earth now. So not only the poor lowly ones in verse 10, but thanks to the lowly ones, even the fat ones, which are basically, it's the rich, it's the Hollywood stars of the earth, right? Will eat and will bow down to worship him. They will enter into an eating like the eating of a lowly one, and a worship like a worship of the lowly one. They will kneel in homage, all who have gone down into the dust. Those whose soul is found with no life. So there's this gift is given to those who have a dead soul here. And we can wonder, what is that dead soul? Well, we can think of ourselves sometimes, where we are a dead soul. But it goes more largely, those who are profoundly, and maybe goes into have even physical death in the body, right? To those whose soul is found with no life. And this gift is extended further and further. And before reading the very end, let me just give you a little summary of this extension, so that you feel a little bit the extension which is in this blue part. So listen to this. Where are we? I had it right now. 1. I extend the Messiah to my community of life and invite them to join into praise. 2. I extend it to all of Israel, the descendants of Jacob. 3. To those, the poor ones, these with whom I identify. 4. And then those who the poor ones, which are going to be outside, right? And then to the universal foreigners in space and time. And finally to the transtemporal. And then even to those who return to the dust, we're going to see that right away. And whose souls no longer live. In other words, I'm going, even the realm of the dead is now invited, right? By the experience I had. Right? So, there's this progression, this pouring out of my identity, that takes on all humanity in its trans-historical dimension. So we have these 31 and 32. The race who serves him will recount what concerns the Lord to the generation to come. It's going to bring. They're going to be radiating into the future, right? They will come and proclaim his righteous care for others to a people who need to be born. Right? There's this ambiguity of need to be born also, which is it may be, which includes clearly also in the Hebrew those who are waiting in Hades for being delivered from the underworld. And there, this expression, his righteous care for others, it covers the word which is in Hebrew is called tzedek, the just one, often, but it goes much further than just one. God is a God who's righteously caring for others, and who's communicated that. And it's that identity of God which God is giving to the whole universe. And the last line of the psalm, which is in Hebrew, it's ki asa. Truly, God's work. So this is summing up the psalm. So we're at 8:00. So I hope that this has engaged you to a psalm which touches deep into the dimensions of our spiritual life, and which Jesus, when he spoke the first words of the psalm on the cross, the first words are the title, and he included the whole psalm in the meaning he was conveying when he said, my God, why have you abandoned me?" I don't know if there's any comment for. There would be much to work on this psalm, and I haven't had the time to put its context inside this second mountain of the Psalter. Next week, we're going to be able to be much more looking also, because the Psalms are enriched by the context in which they are in the Psalter. And we still have this a lot to discover. Okay. I don't know if there's any comment or if this has helped you. And so,
very well done. Thank you, Father.
Okay, so I think it will be on YouTube, I think, within 48 hours. So for those who want to look at it, or you can recommend others. Okay. So God bless you all. Have a good week. And we have another adventure next Monday.
Thank you.